Reincarnation, the idea that our souls somehow return to Earth over and over for new lives in new bodies. Reincarnation has long been a part of global spiritual and religious beliefs. However, many people are not aware of the extensive scientific research that has been done on reincarnation, as well as of the huge web of people who claim to remember past lives as real confirmed people. And the vast majority who have these memories are children. Could this really provide the answers for what lies beyond what we call death? Today, we are diving into the mystery of children who remembered their past lives. But before we get into all of that, I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today. I am very glad out of all the corners of the internet, you somehow found your way to this video and to my channel today. So welcome. This is Life from Mars, and my name is Marissa. I upload new videos every single week about all things mysterious and magical, so if you are into that sort of thing, you should definitely consider, sticking around for a little while, maybe hitting that one button, the one. But no pressure. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Welcome. Let's freaking go, because this topic is just insane, okay? I mean, to be completely honest, I had always kind of known about reincarnation as a concept, and I mean, I wouldn't say that I didn't believe in it like so intensely. I wasn't like a huge skeptic, but I definitely didn't believe in it generally at all, and I always thought it was just kind of another religious belief that didn't necessarily have any backing, which is not a swerve to anyone in particular, but just I never thought like there's no evidence that this is real, but I was very wrong about that. And as soon as I started learning about all of this, I was just blown away. So to start, I just kind of want to bring up a couple of stories so that you guys can really get a feel for this phenomena and an idea for how crazy these situations actually get. Let's start with a 4-year-old boy named Ryan Hammonds from Oklahoma. Ryan's mother, Cindy, was startled when he woke up screaming in the middle of the night one day, begging his mother to take him to the house where he'd lived before. From this night on, he would not let up, and he repeatedly pleaded with his parents to please return him to his old life in Hollywood and the luxurious lifestyle that came with it. He apparently once told them, "I can't live under these conditions. My old house was much better." Can you imagine just your kid roasting your house like that? But obviously his parents felt bad because he was legitimately in anguish, and his mother would try to soothe him, but all he would say over and over at a certain point was, "Mommy, I'm so homesick. Mommy, I'm so homesick." He was really struggling, and his mom said that he was almost like a little old man that couldn't remember all of the details of his life, and he was just frustrated and sad. He genuinely was mourning this past life and wanted to go back to it and completely identified with it. So his mom tries to start getting creative, and she just wants to find ways that, she can help make him feel better in the very least. So she decides to go to the library and she rents some books about old Hollywood, and she brings them home and starts going through them with Ryan. While they're doing this, he stops her and he points to this picture that was a still from a movie from 1932 called Night After Night. He's pointing repeatedly and he tells her, "Mama, that guy's me, the old me." Now, Cindy would later go on to say that she was honestly shocked that this happened, and that they never expected, like her and her husband never expected, that they would actually find a real person that he felt like he was, like they had never believed in reincarnation before. It was never something that they were interested in, and so they were just completely at a loss as to how to handle this situation. So they decide to kind of look into it more and do some research, and they end up stumbling across Jim Tucker. Now, Jim Tucker is a very well-known expert and researcher on child past life memories. So they link up with Jim Tucker and they look farther into Ryan's claims with him, and they end up finding out that this person that Ryan remembered being was an old Hollywood agent named Marty Martins. And in fact, Ryan and his family actually ended up meeting with Marty Martin's daughter, and she was able to confirm over 50 details that Ryan remembered from her father's life. This is just one of many stories like it. One little boy named Sam was not even 2 years old when he looked up at his father and said, "When I was your age, I changed your diaper." So his father, Ron, was definitely shook by this, but I mean, this kid was so young, he thought it was weird that he would say something like that, but figured he probably just misunderstood him, or, you know, he just didn't really know what he was saying. I mean, he literally was not even 2 years old, this little baby. But over the next few months, Sam just kept making similar comments like this. And eventually, after he made more and more of these comments and made more and more of these claims, Ron and his wife Kathy put together this narrative that Sam genuinely believed that he was the reincarnation of his dead grandfather, Ron's deceased father. So it was at this point that they decide to actually ask Sam more follow-up questions and kind of dive in to what exactly he remembered to try to see if this was even remotely possible and just kind of try to understand what was happening in general. I mean, you know, obviously I'm sure it's a little bit shocking to have a child only to have that child say that they were once your parent. But one time, Ron and Kathy asked their son, they said, "How did you come back?" He responded, "I went whoosh and came out of a portal." Now, Sam had been speaking in full sentences apparently since he was only 18 months old, but they were still shocked that he would say something like came out of a portal, because the word portal even alone just seemed to be so out of his vocabulary, and the fact that he would put it in like a context like this where it almost made sense, they were just shocked. They were genuinely shocked. Like, they did not expect him to answer like that. At this point, they start asking him even more questions, like, did you have any siblings? And he ends up telling them, yes, I did have a sister, but that she turned into a fish. So who turned her into a fish? His parents asked him. And he told them, some bad guys. She died. And Sam would have absolutely no way of knowing this, but his grandfather actually did have a sister, and she was murdered 60 years before this, and her body was found floating in the San Francisco Bay. Really, guys? She turned into a fish. It was like he had the memory, but he couldn't even necessarily like explain it, but he knew what happened. Absolutely mind-blowing. And another time, Ron and Kathy asked him how he died, and he ended up falling back and grabbing his head as if he was like in extreme pain. And of course, his grandfather actually died of a cerebral hemorrhage. Another one of the most infamous cases to come out in recent time was that of a 4-year-old boy from Louisiana named James Leininger. James believed that he was once a World War II pilot who had been shot down over Iwo Jima. So James's parents, Bruce and Andrea, first realized that something was amiss when James woke up at only 2 years old screaming in the middle of the night. Which sounds eerily familiar to an account we just talked about, if you guys remember. Ryan Hammonds, the little boy who believed he used to be Marty Martins, also woke up screaming in the middle of the night around this age. And honestly, this seems to be kind of a common theme. So if your kid ever wakes up screaming in the middle of the night, talking about how they're someone else or how they want to go back to their past life, just saying, but it could happen. And if it does, don't worry, there's researchers that you can contact. But anyway, so when James would wake up screaming, he would be saying things, and he was saying things like, airplane crash, plane on fire, little man can't get out. He also seemed to know a lot of details about World War II era crafts that would be pretty much impossible for him to know otherwise, especially at that age. For example, when his mother once referred to an object underneath his toy plane as a bomb, he said it was actually called a drop tank. This was true of World War II airplanes. Another time, the family was watching a History Channel documentary, and the narrator called a Japanese plane a Zero, but James insisted that this was wrong, and that this was not a Zero, that this was actually a Tony. Now, his family ended up looking into this, and he was right. It was a Tony. James eventually also told his parents that his name was James also in his past life, and that on the day he died, he had flown off of a ship called the Natoma. So his parents look into this, and what do they find but a World War II aircraft carrier called the USS Natoma Bay. And not just that, but in its squadron was a pilot named James Huston, who was shot down over the Pacific. James could not stop talking about his plane crashing, and he became just tortured by nightmares. He just had so much anxiety around this plane crash and the way that he had died in this past life. So his mother actually eventually ended up contacting a past life therapist named Carol Bowman. She encouraged the mother not to dismiss the memories and also to assure James that they were from his past life and that he was safe and secure in this one now. And actually this ended up helping James a ton, and he was eventually able to get rid of his nightmares. The family was met, of course, by great skepticism, but they insist that they were the original skeptics and that they would have never believed this if they had not experienced it themselves. Despite their skepticism, they just could not ignore these striking and unusual claims coming from their child. And so many people have stories like this, guys. It is insane. You would definitely underestimate this phenomena. And these are stories where obviously the kids remember like the entire life, right? And they have all these details and all these memories and maybe even some kind of confirmation. But a lot of the times, kids are expressing these memories in just little comments, little moments, might even just be once, right? That they say something that just leaves the parents kind of perplexed, and it's just kind of like, what did you mean by that? Why was that so casual? So these are some examples of some stories that people shared from TikTok. One mother was telling her son one day how lucky she was to have him as her son, and he responded how lucky he was that he got to pick her as his mother. She asked what he meant by that, and he explained that he was walking through the forest one day with his other mom, and that they passed by a cabin that she was inside, and that he walked over to the window, saw her inside, and said, "Yeah, I want her to be my next mom." Another woman's daughter was only 4 when she pointed out a 9/11 memorial and pointed to the Twin Towers. She told her mom that she used to work there until one day when the building got very hot. She said that she tried to escape with her friend but wasn't able to, and that they decided to jump out the window to, quote, "try to fly like a bird." Obviously super crazy, super disturbing. What kind of 4-year-old would say that as a lie, guys? I mean, I don't know. That just seems crazy. Like, I know kids have crazy imaginations and that they will kind of say just random things, but I also feel like parents know if this is something the kid has been exposed to already, you know, if they're like pulling from some kind of reference. But I think that it's really weird when so many people claim that the kids would have no way to like know that this is something that actually happened in history, that this actually happened in the past. I mean, we are talking about really, really little children, you know? And guys, I have to tell you, there are even children who report having past lives on other planets. Yeah, literally, people have past life memories of being aliens. One mother said her little boy told her a very detailed and very bizarre story about his previous life on Saturn. He told her that he had 3 children and that he worked in a very tall building with vehicles that helped transport people to Earth. And once again, she said that she searched so much through all the stuff that he had watched, through all of his toys, like all of the things that he had played with, talked to other people, and did not find anything that was even remotely like this, and never kind of found out why he was talking about this. But I also want to tell you guys about another very, very, very famous case that came out recently of a Russian little boy coming forward about his past life memories of his life on Mars. Life from Mars, you know, we love Mars out here. Shout out to Mars, guys. This little boy's name was Boriska Kiprionovich. I really hope I said that right, and I think I kind of did. But Boriska was actually much older than the other children when he came forward. He was nearly 11 when he started coming forward with these claims to have these memories of this past life. He alleged that the Martian race that he had been part of had gone extinct due to a nuclear war long, long ago. He also warned that there was numerous signs that Earth could be heading towards the exact same fate, and that he believes that he reincarnated on Earth to serve this warning to its people. Boriska claims to remember many details of his life as Martian, and even says that his race did not go completely extinct, and that some members of his species did survive. He says that they are currently in the process of reconstructing the architecture of the planet and working on advanced weapons purely in defense of the planet. Another interesting he said about his life as a Martian was that they only aged to 35. Now that doesn't mean that they die at 35, but they only age to 35, and that they don't age after that for the rest of their lives. So it's like they continue to live, but they don't age forever like we would here on Earth. They stop aging at 35, and they keep those physical characteristics for the rest of their life. I thought that was interesting. I mean, whether it's true or not, that part was creative, okay? I'll just say that. And another very interesting thing about Boriska especially was that this kid was touted as a child genius. Much like a lot of the other children, he developed very, very early, was able to have motor skills and communication skills very, very early and in a very advanced manner compared to most children his age. Apparently, he was able to hold his head up at only 2 weeks old. And his doctor would even confirm that apparently a few months after that, he was already talking, and that by the time he was 1.5, he could already draw, paint, and read. So obviously that would be like a crazy accelerated timeline of development. So this kid was super smart, super smart from a very young age, and had a really high IQ and was incredibly intelligent. But he was also said to be very shy and kind of reserved. So it was also kind of out of character for him to come forward like this with such an outlandish story. This had just been this normal kid who was super smart, you know, really seemed to be literally this boy genius, and then he comes forward with these claims. So people were just kind of astounded and didn't really know what to make out of it. And guys, I really want to make sure that I am making clear that these accounts of child reincarnation and child past life memories are not just limited to stories and accounts from the families and the children themselves. In fact, these claims and the larger phenomena of past life memories have long been the subject of scientific research around the world. Probably the most popular and widespread research that has been done on child reincarnation and child past life memories was began by a man named Ian Stevenson, the founder and long-standing director of the Division of Perception Studies at the University of Virginia. And in 1996, Ian Stevenson was joined in this research by child psychologist Jim Tucker. And 6 years later, in 2002, when Ian Stevenson would retire, Jim Tucker would take over the program and the research permanently. Over the past 45 years, the U of A team has gathered over 2,500 documented cases of children from all around the world who have detailed memories of past lives. In this research, they found that children typically began talking about their past lives around 2 or 3 and stopped when they got a little bit older, around 6 or 7. And take in mind, obviously this is real scientific research, and so before these children could even be qualified for these studies, they went through a whole evaluation process along with their parents to try and prevent any kind of fraud. So basically they wanted to make sure, first of all, were the parents credible, and second of all, was there any way that these memories that this child was reporting to have came from some kind of external source, right? Like a TV show or some kind of other media or a game or a family member or something, right? Like, was there really an explanation, a source to these memories beyond just the internal of the child, right? Were these genuine memories that this child was having? So if a child was able to pass through this initial process, they would then collect detailed information and accounts from the child about what they remembered. And at this point, they would try to do some research and match up these child's accounts with a real, actual deceased person. And in a crazy whopping 3 out of every 4 kids, they were able to solve the case. In other words, they were able to find a match for a person who seemed to be the person that the child remembered being. Another interesting thing that they found was that about 20% of these children had some kind of birthmark or an impairment that matched a scar or an injury that this past person had had. And also about 35% of these kids also had some kind of fierce or surrounding the manner of their death, right? So just like James, who would wake up screaming from his plane crashing, a lot of these children also had similar experiences. The family had similar reports of the child having phobias around their supposed manner of death from this past life. And it's also interesting to note that a lot of studies have also indicated that the vast majority of these children do report dying a violent or unexpected death. Along with this, of course, like I kind of mentioned, the kids also tended to have verbal skills at a younger age than their peers, and they also typically had very heightened emotions around this past life and identified with it very deeply, and really had like a lot of emotion and care for the person they used to be, for their old life, for their old family. It was also found that the majority of these past lives took place pretty close to where this current life was happening, within about 300 miles or so. It was also typically the case that this past person had died only within about a year or two of this new child being born. And of course, this was not always the case, obviously, but this did seem to kind of be a reoccurring situation. And the U of A team is not the only one to be looking into this, to researching this. In fact, there have been hundreds upon hundreds of studies from all around the world about past life memories and reincarnation. And not surprisingly, a very large percentage of these, almost 84%, are surrounding children. It does definitely seem obvious from the evidence that is collected that people are more likely to remember past lives when they are very young and likely to stop remembering as they age. And in addition to this more traditional kind of scientific research, there has also been tons of evidence collected from research done by prominent hypnotherapists who have been able to regress children and adults alike to past lives and to even the time in between lives. One of the most prominent people who has done research on this is a man named Michael Newton. And he has actually written several books about this. And the thing that is interesting about Michael Newton is that he kind of stumbled into this on accident. Now, he was a hypnotherapist. He was trying to kind of like regress people back to their young childhood, right? Like he would regress people back to these traumas and things that, that they needed to bring to the surface. So he'd be regressing them back to their childhood. And he started realizing that he was regressing people back to before these current lives. And it just kept happening that whenever he would regress people back far enough, they would start remembering past lives and even, like I said, reports of what it was like in between lives. And guys, honestly, I could do a whole video just on that, so if you want me to, please let me know. I would also definitely recommend Michael Newton's books if you are interested in them. I have not read them yet, actually. I really want to, but I've heard that they're so good, and I've heard so many of the stories in them, so I already know that they're amazing, but it is just so crazy. In just his career alone, I mean, he has done hundreds upon hundreds of different hypnosis sessions with people, and it is crazy because the thing about these hypnotherapists is that although I think that in general it would kind of be regarded as like maybe not as esteemed or not viewed as legitimately as these other scientific studies, it is just insane because you cannot ignore their research either, guys. And the big thing about what I found from these hypnotherapists and their research and their evidence that they've gathered is that so many people have memories and reports of the same kind of thing, right? Like the same kind of experience of dying and like what happens in that time in between lives and reincarnating and choosing that new body and all of these things that happen in the time between lives and kind of like the grander existence of our souls, right? It is just insane. And like I said, that is a whole video on its own, but that is also another really big factor of analyzing child reincarnation, right? Is like all these evidence from not only the scientists but also these hypnotherapists. Even Nikola Tesla himself, the acclaimed and visionary scientist and inventor from the 1800s, often made comments about how reincarnation deserved to be treated more seriously and really should be subject to more scientific research. He once said something very interesting, which I think can be related to not only just this, but a lot of different things. He said, "The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will have made more progress in 1 decade than in all previous centuries of its existence." In the United States, about 75 million people are estimated to believe reincarnation is real. And about 10% of these people report being able to actually remember their own past lives or have some kind of past life memories. However, obviously, there's a lot of other countries in the world, like Lebanon and India and Sri Lanka, where reincarnation is much more of a staple in religious and spiritual and cultural beliefs. And for that reason, in a lot of other countries, those numbers are significantly higher. And of course, to be fair, there are a lot of skeptics to this belief, to this phenomena, to the idea that reincarnation could be real, and even just the phenomena of past life memories and children remembering their past lives in general. Of course, first, a really big argument is that these are just false memories, right? Like, these are children, these are just fantasies, they are just making stuff up. Straight up, these are just pretty much lies, right? Like, these are just not real memories. That's obviously a big argument. And obviously, there's also a lot of people who do still suggest that these children probably just heard these memories somewhere else, right? Like, they were probably just exposed to something and they just forgot. Like, they had to have had some kind of exposure to something that triggered these ideas within them, and that more than likely their parents just didn't know about it, or they were lying about it, they faked it, whatever, right? There's so many different possibilities, and people think that that is more than likely probably an explanation in a lot of these cases. Some people also suggest that maybe these kids are like disassociating from reality and they just kind of want to identify with another life. But I will say that that one kind of has been debunked, because obviously in a lot of these research, these are literally psychologists that are working with these children, and it's very obvious that this is not just some kind of, situation where they are disassociating. So that one has not really been proven to be very valid. People also think that, maybe this is just a way for kids to get attention, like they see all of the attention that they get when they start talking about this and how their parents are curious, and, people think the parents probably egging this kid on, right? Like making them think that it's this really cool thing and how it's so amazing, and the more attention that they get, the more kind of like feeds this delusion from this child, right? Or like even the parents maybe are exaggerating these claims, like they are saying that the kids remember more than they actually do, or they're kind of like fabricating things, like it's not completely the truth. But it really is kind of difficult to say if all of these cases could just be explained away by these kinds of things, right? Like, is it really possible that these are all just a coincidence? Like especially in these really detailed cases where these kids are literally talking about people from across the world and accurately remembering things that they would never have any idea of knowing, for people that are not written about anywhere, right? Like they would not have heard about like this random dude from Ireland, like thousands of miles away. Like there would be no way for them to know about this person, yet this is who this little boy claimed to have been, right? And like knew who his neighbors were and who his parents were and knew how he died and what happened to him and knew about his pets. And it's like there are these kinds of stories, you know what I mean, where it's just like, I don't know, I can't just write that off as like, oh, this is just fantasy. It definitely seems like there's at least something more detailed going on that we cannot explain. So what do you guys think about this phenomena? What do you guys think about this? You have like a favorite reincarnation story? I know that there's so many. I mean, I could make this video like 5 hours long if I went in and just told you guys all the stories. I could make a part 2 if you guys want of more stories, so let me know if you would like to see that. I could definitely make that video, but please also just share in the comments, like let me know your craziest stories that you've ever heard, or maybe you have an experience of you remembering your past lives, or having a family member or just someone that you know that had an experience with their child. Maybe you had an experience with your child. I would love to hear stories from people who have any kind of personal experience, and just tell me, what do you guys think? There has been so much scientific research done on this. There are so many stories, and they are from all over the world. This is clearly a cross-cultural phenomena, whatever it is. It is literally happening everywhere. And also, and I don't know guys, like for me, the fact that reincarnation has been a human belief for so long, and the fact that there's a lot of evidence for it, it really does lead me to believe that it is entirely possible, but that's just my opinion. But please let me know, what do you guys think in the comments below? I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts, and thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate, thank you for sticking out to the end and watching the whole video. That really means a lot to me. And please don't forget to like this video if you did enjoy it, and like I said, consider subscribing if you want to see more videos like this, because I have so many more good ideas coming to you guys. Like, I wish I could just put out videos every day, and maybe eventually I can if enough of you subscribe. So if you want more videos faster, best thing you can do is subscribe. But either way, it's also the nicest thing you can do. So I mean, you know, there's that. But anyway, thank you guys so much again. I love you very much, and I will see you again on the next episode. Bye!